I'm here tonight to honor Nancy Hatch Dupree, who I've heard a great deal about in my life, but actually haven't met till this evening, for which I apologize. This is just a remarkable example to me of what one single person, an American, who cares about something and gives her life to it, can do. Since you're all in this room, you know what she's done. Many of you know it better than I do because you're on her board or you followed her. But I don't think we know any other American who stayed through the Taliban period, who argued with the Taliban to preserve the culture, who had enormous success. She was just telling me how she tried to save the Buddhas at Bamiyan, and Mullah Omar was overruled by people even harder line than him in the leadership. I didn't know anyone was harder line than him, but I yield to your greater knowledge. And to me, what Nancy Hatch Dupree has done is, it just makes you proud to be an American. The organizers of this asked me to say a word about where we stand in terms of the policy process, so I'll be happy to try to do so, because obviously the attention on Afghanistan is mounting, the drama is mounting. Anyone who understands the way politics, policy, process, and the press intersect knows that we're headed into an enormous debate of potentially historic significance over where we should go in Afghanistan. The one thing I do want to underscore in regard to the situation is that we are committed to helping Afghanistan. This administration increased the number of military personnel. We went by 21,000 so far. We increased the aid in both Afghanistan and Pakistan by enormous magnitudes in Pakistan and substantial amounts in Afghanistan. We have sent hundreds and hundreds of civilians out to support the troops. We have decentralized the mission and put people down to the district level. Those troops, those Marines in the furthest reaches of Helmand, not even Lashkar, but district towns like Nawa are accompanied by civilians. I know that some of you in this room have worked in jobs like this, and you know how challenging they are. We've gone to the Congress and asked for a great deal more funds. We have changed American policy in regard to major issues. We've ended American destruction of poppy crops. We just phased it out as fast as we could. I want to stress, if the Afghans destroy poppies themselves, that's their business, but we're out of that business. Because the previous group was, we were spending more money destroying poppy crops than we were building up agriculture. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. We're not at war with the poppy farmers, and the poppy farmers were just growing the best cash crop available in these particular circumstances. We want to rebuild the agricultural sector, which was once vibrant and exporting. Afghans are brilliant farmers, or they couldn't grow stuff in that soil. And we have got a massive increase in our agriculture programs. We're sending out many ag workers to work on it. We are going to try to improve the training of the Afghan police, which in my view is the single biggest failure of our efforts in Afghanistan over the last 8 years. Enormous amounts of money, but the police are the weak chain and the security link. I suspect we're going to advocate increasing their size, although Congress will have to decide whether to support that. At the end of the process, we're going to have to get back to why we're in Afghanistan. I was asked by the BBC a few days ago why the United States and British troops died for a flawed election. So it's a legitimate question, but I want to be very clear about it. We support the elections, but we're not in Afghanistan for the elections. We're in Afghanistan for a whole host of reasons, starting with our own national interests, U.S. national interests, and going on to the fact that what happens in Afghanistan will affect what happens in the region, and what happens in the region will affect what happens in the world. And Al-Qaeda is still there in the region, ever dangerous, and publicly asking for people to attack the U.S. and publicly asking nuclear engineers to give them nuclear secrets from Pakistan. So we support the elections, and I'm proud we did, but we're not asking young American men and women or our allies to risk their lives for an election, because if we did that, we might have troops in Zimbabwe, I don't know, but I want to be very clear on this. It's very important we understand, as Americans, as Afghans, as Afghan Americans, how critical it is that we understand how important Afghanistan is. But before I go, I want to get back to Nancy, because you just epitomize everything that makes me proud to be an American, and I want to thank you on behalf of all of us from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing to preserve Afghan culture, to show us that underneath or behind this terrible 30-year period, which you managed to stick it out throughout, that what you've done. I first visited Afghanistan in 1971. So the era you describe in, for example, your interview in the Financial Times, I remember that era. And like almost anyone who went to Afghanistan in that period, I was just transfixed by it. And then I didn't go back till 2006. And everything had changed. But underneath it, you could still see the Afghan spirit. And you have done so much to keep that alive. So I thank you. It's just a great honor to be part of this tonight. Thank you.
Afghanistan is in the eye of the storm again. And much of this is a posturing for power by individuals and vested interests who do not take the time to consider the potentials that Afghanistan has. You have this population which is very young, and jobs are very scarce, and there's nothing more lethal than young people without jobs and without a belief in the future. But Afghanistan, as has been said here, has one very great asset, and that is the people. The people who have shown that they have a tremendous resilience. They are able to cope. They've shown this through the years of great tragedies. And ACKU, the Afghanistan Center at Kabul University, believes that given access to information of all sorts, that these people, the Afghan people, can and will take charge and do a tremendous amount towards the reconstruction of Afghanistan without depending on others for handouts. So this is the slogan of ACKU is sharing information for nation building. And in order to carry out and realize our goal in this effect, we have amassed 48,000 documents on Afghanistan, on all subjects, generated by the UN, the NGOs, the bilaterals, government, including the Taliban. They are now housed at Kabul University in the main library, where we have a reading room, which is visited by more than 1,000 people every month. And we have a website. We have a website that contains all of our database. All the 48,000 documents are listed. And increasingly, people are learning about us, and we are getting orders for documents all over the world, from Australia to the United States. People who have been looking for a document for ages, and they finally find that it's here. And this is very satisfying. However, this is not enough for ACLU, because having them nicely cataloged and on the shelves is not enough. You've got to take them off the shelf if they're going to be useful. So we are digitizing the whole collection, because we want to distribute all this information as widely as possible. And with digitization and all that nice IT stuff, which I don't really understand. I'm much too old, but anyway, they're busily digitizing, and they will put them on to CDs and DVD-ROMs and all that jazz. And the information in that way can be sent to all the universities throughout the country. The students at Herat are just salivating and can't wait for this material to come to us. But even that's not enough. We realize that we're not there only for the urban and university students and government officials and others that use us. We want to reach out into the population where the people are. And for this we have an outreach program which is called ABLE. And I see some of our ABLE books are here. They are designed primarily for new literates. And we send these libraries out into the provinces, to communities, to high schools, to provincial councils. And there are about 123,000 books out there. Many of them are our publications. And at the moment, the series on democracy is a hot item. And we have published this because, you know, so much money, as Ambassador Holbrooke was saying, $230 billion was spent just on trying to implant this thing called democracy in Afghanistan. And the framework is there, but it's barren, because the people don't really understand the essence of the democratic process. And these books stay in very simple form, but without compromising the subject, the rights of the individual and the obligations of the government and vice versa. So they are being sent now, circulated throughout the country, so that the bare bones of the framework, we can transform that into a meaningful structure of government. These are small steps. They're not big things like I've been hearing about here, but I believe in small steps and not going too far, because then is how you build sustainability. And I am all for and insist that what we do, we look forward enough to make sure that it is sustainable.